Most people are living inside a projection screen and don't even realize it. They think the world is happening to them. But quantum physics and ancient Hermetic philosophy both prove the same thing. Consciousness projects reality outward. Carl Jung spent his career documenting this through psychology. Neville Goddard taught people how to use it. In the next few minutes, you're going to discover the exact protocol for changing what gets projected onto your reality screen. Here's something most people will never figure out. You're not living in a world. You're living inside a projection screen. There was someone I knew who spent years stuck in the same cycle. Same financial struggles, same relationship patterns, same invisible ceiling blocking every opportunity. Nothing they tried seemed to break through. Every effort felt like pushing against an immovable wall. Then something shifted. Not out there in the circumstances, but in here, inside their own consciousness. Within months, everything externally began reorganizing itself. Different people showed up. New doors opened. Old obstacles simply dissolved. What changed wasn't luck or timing or strategy. What changed was the internal frequency broadcasting outward. This person discovered an ancient principle that Hermetic masters understood millennia ago, that Carl Jung validated through psychology, and that Neville Goddard taught people how to apply in daily life. The YouTube algorithm delivers more content like this when you're subscribed, so don't miss what's coming next. This knowledge changes everything. Let's start with something Neville Goddard spent his entire life trying to get people to understand. Everything you experience is self-pushed out. Everything, not some things, not most things. Everything. That person who wronged you, that opportunity that slipped away, that financial situation that won't budge, all of it, self-pushed out. Now, before your mind jumps to blame or guilt, understand what this actually means. It's not saying you consciously wanted bad things to happen. It's saying that your inner state, your identity at the deepest level, projects outward and creates your lived experience. The world you're walking through right now isn't some objective reality that exists independently of you. It's a screen displaying the contents of your consciousness. Most people have this backwards. They think the external world is the cause and their internal state is the effect. Something bad happens, so they feel bad. Something good happens, so they feel good. But Neville discovered the reversal. Your internal state is always the cause, and the external world is always the effect. The world isn't happening to you. The world is happening from you. Here's why this matters practically. When you try to change your life without changing your inner state, you're attempting the impossible. It's like expecting your television screen to show a different channel while the signal remains the same. You can rearrange furniture all day long, but if the broadcast hasn't changed, neither has the picture. Think about lottery winners. Study after study shows that most people who win massive jackpots end up broke within a few years. Why? Because they changed what they had without changing who they were. Their identity still vibrated at the frequency, but desire without identity shift is just wishful thinking. You can want wealth all day long, but if your core identity says, "I'm someone who struggles financially," that's the reality that gets projected onto your screen. The ancient Hermetic text known as the Kybalion opens with a principle so fundamental that everything else builds from it. The all is mind. The universe is mental. For thousands of years, people read this and misunderstood it as some abstract philosophical statement. But it's not abstract at all. It's describing the literal mechanics of how reality operates. What does it mean that the universe is mental? It means that the physical world you experience is not the foundation of reality. Consciousness is the foundation. The mental plane creates the physical plane, not the other way around. Everything you touch, see, hear, taste, and smell is a mental projection that has solidified into what appears to be external matter. Imagine you're sitting in a movie theater. The images on the screen feel real. They move you emotionally. They capture your attention completely. But those images don't originate from the screen itself. They originate from the projector behind you. The screen is just where the projection becomes visible. That's what the physical world is. It's where consciousness becomes visible. This isn't mysticism, by the way. Modern physics has been circling this truth for decades. The observer effect in quantum mechanics shows that the act of observation literally affects what's being observed. Subatomic particles exist in a state of probability until they're observed, at which point they collapse into a definite state. The mind isn't separate from matter. Mind shapes matter at the most fundamental level. So when the Hermetic masters say the universe is mental, they're telling you that everything begins in consciousness and moves outward toward manifestation. Your bank account balance, your relationship status, your health condition, none of these things are fixed external realities. They're all projections of inner states. And since they're projections, they can change the moment the projector changes. Most people spend their entire lives trying to manipulate the screen. They want to change what's showing up without ever turning around to see the projector. They want different relationships without changing their relationship with themselves. They want more money without changing their money consciousness. They want better health without shifting their health identity. It doesn't work that way. The screen always matches the signal. There are 4 massive illusions that keep people locked into unwanted realities. These aren't just mistakes or misunderstandings. They're fundamental misperceptions about how reality works. Until you see through these illusions, you'll keep recreating the same patterns, no matter how hard you try to change. The first illusion is the illusion of separation. This is the belief that you and the world are separate entities, that there's you in here and the world out there, and the two are fundamentally divided. But Hermetic philosophy destroys this illusion completely. If the universe is mental, if everything is consciousness projecting itself, then there is no real separation. The world isn't separate from you. It's an extension of you. When you believe in separation, you automatically position yourself as a victim. Things happen to you. Circumstances control you. Other people determine your experience. But once you see through this illusion, you realize that everything showing up in your experience is intimately connected to your state of consciousness. Nothing is truly external. Everything is an inside job. The second illusion is the illusion of powerlessness. This follows directly from the first illusion. If you believe the world is separate from you and things just happen randomly, then obviously you're powerless. You're at the mercy of forces beyond your control. But the moment you understand that consciousness creates reality, powerlessness becomes impossible. You might not control every detail of how things manifest, but you absolutely control the state from which they manifest. Neville used to say that imagination creates reality, not physical action, not hard work, not strategy, imagination. The state you imagine yourself to be in becomes the state you experience externally. So powerlessness isn't a condition of reality, it's a condition of consciousness. Change the consciousness, dissolve the powerlessness. The third illusion is the illusion of permanence. People look at their current circumstances and think, this is just how it is. This is my reality. They solidify what's temporary into what feels permanent. But nothing in the manifest world is permanent. Everything is in constant flux, constantly reorganizing itself based on the signal being broadcast from consciousness. Your financial situation right now isn't permanent. Your relationship status isn't permanent. Your health condition isn't permanent. They're all temporary reflections of temporary states. The moment your state shifts, these reflections begin shifting too. Sometimes slowly, sometimes rapidly, but they always shift because they must. The screen has no choice but to display what the projector sends. The fourth illusion is the illusion of exception. This is when someone learns these principles and thinks, okay, this might work for other people, but I'm different. My situation is special. My circumstances are too difficult. My past is too damaged. It's a subtle way of claiming powerlessness while appearing to understand the principles. But consciousness doesn't make exceptions. The Hermetic principle doesn't work for some people and not others. It's not a technique that succeeds or fails based on circumstances. It's the fundamental law of how reality operates. Gravity doesn't stop working because you don't believe in it. Neither does the mental nature of the universe. Your consciousness creates your reality, whether you accept it or not. So here's what I want to know. Which of these four illusions has the strongest grip on you right now? Is it separation, powerlessness, permanence, or exception? Drop a comment and let me know, because recognizing the illusion is the first step to dissolving it. Carl Jung discovered something that explains why people keep recreating the same unwanted patterns, even when they consciously want something different. He called it the shadow. The shadow represents all the parts of yourself that you've rejected, denied, or refused to acknowledge. And here's what's critical. Whatever you reject internally gets projected externally. If you've rejected your own power, you'll project powerlessness onto your circumstances. If you've rejected your own worth, you'll project unworthiness into your relationships. If you've rejected your own abundance, you'll project scarcity into your finances. The external world becomes a mirror showing you exactly what you haven't integrated within yourself. This is why you keep attracting the same type of person into your life. It's why the same problems show up repeatedly with different faces. It's not coincidence. It's not bad luck. Someone irritates them, so they avoid that person. But then someone else shows up with the same irritating quality. They change jobs to escape a difficult boss, but the next boss exhibits similar patterns. They end a relationship because of certain problems, but the next relationship develops identical issues. Jung would say, this is the shadow demanding integration. The external repetition is consciousness trying to show you what needs to be seen and accepted within yourself. When you finally turn inward and integrate what you've been rejecting, the external projection stops. The people, situations, and circumstances that were mirroring your shadow suddenly disappear or transform completely. Integration doesn't mean acting out shadow qualities. If you've rejected anger, integration doesn't mean becoming an angry person. It means acknowledging that anger exists within you, accepting it without judgment, and allowing it to inform you rather than control you unconsciously. Once integrated, it stops projecting outward as angry people and hostile situations in your environment. Now that you understand how projection works and why you keep recreating unwanted patterns, let's get into the actual protocol for changing your projected reality. There are 5 core principles that govern this process. Master these 5 principles, and you become someone who consciously creates rather than unconsciously repeats. The first principle is recognition without resistance. This is where most people get stuck immediately. They look at their current reality, hate what they see, and resist it with everything they have. But resistance is a form of energetic engagement that keeps the unwanted reality locked in place. What you resist persists, as Jung discovered. Recognition without resistance means looking at your current circumstances and saying, "This is information, not a sentence." It's data, showing you what state of consciousness has been dominant up until now. It's not good or bad. It's not permanent or fixed. It's just feedback. When you stop fighting against what is and simply recognize it as a reflection of previous states, you free up enormous energy for creating new states. This is what Jung meant by shadow integration. You can't integrate what you're constantly rejecting. You have to look at the shadow, acknowledge it, accept that it's been part of your consciousness, and then choose to transform it. Recognition creates the space for transformation. Resistance blocks that space completely. The second principle is separation of identity from circumstance. You are not your circumstances. You are not your bank account. You are not your relationship status. You are not your job title. You are not your health condition. You are the consciousness experiencing these things, but you are not the things themselves. This distinction changes everything. When you identify with circumstances, you become trapped by them. "I am broke" is very different from "I am currently experiencing financial limitation." The first statement makes poverty part of your identity. The second statement makes it a temporary experience, separate from who you are. Neville taught this relentlessly. Nothing outside you has power over you, because nothing outside you is ultimately real in the way you think it is. Everything external is just consciousness made visible. And since you are consciousness, nothing external can define or limit you unless you grant it that power through identification. The third principle is deliberate state selection. Once you've recognized your current reality without resistance and separated your identity from your circumstances, now you get to choose. Who do you want to be? Not what do you want to have, but who do you want to be? This is where the Hermetic principle becomes practical. If the universe is mental, if consciousness creates reality, then selecting a new state of consciousness means selecting a new reality. You don't have to figure out how the external world will reorganize itself. That's not your job. Your job is to select and maintain the state of consciousness that corresponds to your desired reality. Neville called this living in the end. Assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled. Not someday when conditions are right, but right now, while conditions still look wrong. The external hasn't changed yet because the internal just shifted. But the external will change because it must. The screen always displays what the projector broadcasts. Create a clear internal knowing of who you are in your desired reality. How does that version of you think? How do they feel? What's their relationship with money, with people, with themselves. Don't focus on the external trappings. Focus on the internal state. State creates everything else. The fourth principle is constant state occupancy. Selecting a new state once doesn't cut it. You have to occupy that state consistently until it becomes your default frequency. This is where most people fail. They touch the new state briefly, then bounce back to the old state because the old state feels more familiar. The Hermetic masters understood this. Maintaining a mental state requires discipline, especially when external circumstances haven't shifted yet to confirm the new state. You have to hold the new frequency while the old reality is still visible. That gap between internal shift and external manifestation is where faith comes in. Not religious faith, but functional faith in the principle itself. Jung talked about this in terms of psychological transformation. Real change happens through sustained focus on the new pattern, not through occasional attempts. The unconscious mind needs consistent input before it accepts the new pattern as dominant. Once it does, projection shifts automatically. This doesn't mean forcing yourself to feel something you don't feel. It means returning to the chosen state again and again, gently redirecting attention back to it whenever you notice yourself slipping into the old state. Eventually, the new state becomes natural. That's when external reality begins reorganizing rapidly. The fifth principle is celebration of early signals. As you maintain the new state, small signs start appearing that reality is shifting. Synchronicities happen. Unexpected opportunities emerge. People behave differently toward you. Resources show up from unlikely places. These are not coincidences. These are the first ripples of manifestation. Most people miss these signals or dismiss them as unimportant, but how you respond to early manifestations determines how quickly larger manifestations arrive. When you notice a synchronicity and feel genuine gratitude, you amplify the frequency you're broadcasting. The universe, being mental, responds to that amplification with more. Jung observed that when people begin integrating their shadow, their external world shifts in noticeable ways. Relationships improve, opportunities increase, obstacles dissolve. This isn't magic, it's mechanics. The projection changed because the projector changed. Celebrate every sign that the projection is shifting. Celebration accelerates the process. Here's something crucial that nobody tells you. Transformation isn't a one-time event. It's a continuous cycle. You don't shift your state once and stay there forever while everything else changes around you. You evolve through multiple states, each one bringing new reflections, new challenges, new levels of manifestation. This is why people who achieve one major manifestation often struggle with the next one. They think the same state that created the first manifestation should create all future manifestations. But consciousness is meant to expand continuously. Each new level requires a new state. The Hermetic principle doesn't stop working after you get what you want. It keeps working, keeps reflecting, keeps manifesting whatever state you're in. So, you have to keep evolving your state consciously. You have to keep choosing who you're becoming rather than resting in who you've been. The gap between internal shift and external manifestation can be frustrating. You change internally, and nothing seems to change externally, at least not immediately. This gap is where most people abandon the process. They decide it doesn't work, revert to the old state, and the old reality stabilizes again. But understanding the gap changes how you move through it. Physical reality has density. It can't reorganize instantly the way consciousness can shift instantly. There's a lag time, while circumstances, people, and opportunities rearrange themselves to match your new frequency. That lag time isn't evidence that it's not working. It's evidence that it is working but hasn't completed yet. People who successfully manifest understand this. They maintain the new state through the gap, not because they see external proof, but because they trust the principle. The Hermetic masters weren't guessing when they said the universe is mental. They were describing observable law. Trust the law, maintain the state, allow the manifestation to arrive in its own timing. What separates people who consistently manifest from people who occasionally get lucky? It's not talent. It's not special gifts. It's not even strong desire. It's the ability to maintain a state regardless of current appearances. While everyone else is reacting to what they see externally, conscious creators are generating from what they hold internally. This is the difference between living from circumstance and living from consciousness. Most people let circumstances dictate their state. They feel abundant when money shows up. They feel loved when someone loves them. They feel powerful when things go their way. But that's backwards. That's being a reactor, not a creator. Creators do the opposite. They choose the state first, maintain it independently of circumstances, and watch as circumstances reorganize to match. They feel abundant before money shows up. They feel loved before anyone loves them. They feel powerful before anything goes their way. That's what Neville meant by living in the end. You embody the end state now, and the middle fills itself in. Now we arrive at the deepest paradox in this entire process. The moment you become someone who is complete, who lacks nothing, who needs nothing external to feel whole, that's precisely when everything external begins flowing toward you effortlessly. The moment you stop needing to have things, you start naturally having things. Neville taught that I am is the name of God. Not I want, or I need, or I hope to be. Just I am. When you exist in pure being, when your identity is complete in itself without requiring external validation or external addition, you've accessed the most powerful creative state possible. The Hermetic principle explains why this works. If the universe is mental and you are consciousness, then you already are everything at the level of being. Lack is impossible at that level. Limitation is impossible. Incompleteness is impossible. All lack, all limitation, all incompleteness exists only in the projected world, not in the projector itself. When you identify with the projector rather than the projection, you realize you already have everything because you are everything. You don't need money to feel secure because security is your nature. You don't need relationships to feel loved because love is what you're made of. You don't need success to feel valuable because value is inherent in consciousness itself. Jung discovered this from a different angle. When someone fully integrates their shadow, when they accept all rejected parts and become whole psychologically, they stop projecting neediness. They stop unconsciously pushing away what they want, while consciously claiming they want it. The internal conflict resolves, and the external world reflects that resolution as natural abundance. This is why effortless manifestation only happens when you stop efforting. Effort implies lack, implies distance between you and what you want. implies separation, but being implies completion, implies presence, implies unity. You can't effort your way into being. You can only relax into it. Does this mean you take no action? No. It means your action comes from being rather than from lack. You don't act to get something you don't have. You act as an expression of something you already are. Those actions carry completely different energy and produce completely different results. Here's what changes everything. Most people are trying to change the world, but the world isn't the problem. The world is just a screen displaying consciousness. Change the consciousness, change the display. You've always been the projector, never the projection. You've always been the creator, never the created. The only difference now is you're doing it consciously. Freedom isn't getting what you want externally. Freedom is realizing you are what you want internally. When that realization becomes permanent, the external reorganizes itself to mirror that internal reality. Not because you forced it, not because you manipulated it, but simply because that's how reality works. The screen always matches the signal. But there's something subtle that sabotages this process even after you understand everything I just explained. Something so invisible that most people never catch it until it's too late. If you made it all the way here and this really landed for you, drop a comment that says, "Reality is reflection." That simple act anchors this understanding in a way that passive watching never can. And if you haven't subscribed yet, hit that button now. The next video revealing that invisible sabotage pattern is coming, and you don't want to miss it. Click the video appearing on your screen right now. It takes everything you just learned even deeper and shows you how to maintain your new state when everything around you is pulling you back to the old one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.